The end of another week again? Already? Surely not. Has somebody taken a day out of the week, or perhaps two, this particular week? This way, pups. Come on. Good boy. Barney is with me today. You'll probably hear me mention this, I'm sure, in a moment or three as well. It's just so muddy. Let me get a sketchbook image. Is somebody camping out over there? That looks like a tent. I'm sure it is. Right, I won't point my camera that direction. They might wonder what I'm doing. They're in woodland, and I'm just about to walk through woodland here. F4, 1/60th shutter speed, 160 ISO as well. Here we go. A sketchbook picture to start the day.
I'm a photographer. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. I always carry a camera, and I take pictures of anything. Anything and everything. And just on the basis of, gee, that looks interesting.
And that's the voice of Robert Gumpert, my guest today. Actually, the tent I was talking about a moment ago, that's relevant with regard to the conversation I'm having today with Robert. Well, part of it anyway. It's pertinent. 4 years ago, I said something to Robert, or Bob, along the lines of, you must come back sometime. And then life happened. Bit like I was talking right at the head of the show a moment ago. Who pressed the accelerator button, really? Because it does feel like somebody stepped on the gas pedal, not button, pedal. I'm going to digress for a moment, but years ago, when I had a brief dalliance with on-screen television continuity for a TV company called Granada, we used to read between the programmes from a teleprompter. I don't think anybody does envision continuity anymore. I don't know of any television companies in the UK that do it anyway. It's all off-screen, isn't it? So we'd read between the programmes from a teleprompter. You'd write your script up, you'd have it ready, you'd look to camera at the appropriate moment, and then read stuff like, next on Granada, da-da-da-da-da. And you made the words pass up on the screen in front of you by using a foot pedal, like the gas pedal, yes. The accelerator pedal. I can't remember there ever being a way to reverse it. I don't think there was. It just went forward. Forward motion, that was all. Hang on, let me just navigate this deeper puddle around this way. Cool, Barney's going to be a much darker shade of brown today, aren't you, pups? Look at your legs already. So yeah, you'd step on this accelerator pedal and the words would come up in front of you. Anyway, you could set the pedal's speed or sensitivity, and if you didn't do a quick test when it came to your shift, because everybody operated their pedals in different ways, the sensitivity could be wildly different to what you're expecting. And one of the cruel tricks of the trade at that time was to set the accelerator pedal for the next person, so it would just, the words would just zip up in front of them, boof, and gone. It would have zoomed up so quickly, you'd be left with no script, a blank screen, devoid of text, and frankly, you look like a rabbit staring into headlights. What do I do now? Anyway, that's exactly what it feels like at the moment. Somebody has reset the sensitivity on the gas pedal. Anyway, to Robert, who I can't believe I spoke to 4 years ago. It really does only seem a minute or three in the past. He's a photographer based in San Francisco, and he documents the sort of stuff that, photography gives you access to. That if you just wandered into a place and said, I'd like to have a look around here, please, if I may, you'd be escorted out the door, pretty sharpish, by people in hobnail boots with a badge on their jacket. He's been to factory floors, he's worked with unions, he's felt the pressure inside emergency rooms. He's investigated with his camera, the criminal justice world, and that is why I know of Bob's work, because the project I'm fascinated by is his picture and sound one called Take a Picture, Tell a Story, which is a series from inside San Francisco county jails. In essence, he has a conversation with an inmate in an interview room, and then he makes a portrait. It's such a wonderful, simple idea. And I often quote him to people who are wondering how to bring another dynamic to their work atop making not that it should be just a photographic portrait. So he records their words, sound records them. He's also been making photographs of the men, and it is men mainly, I think, who go to the hiring halls of the docks or in the docks to set sail as mariners. We talk a little bit about that. Plus we jangle, as my mate Mally would say, about Division Street, which is a Dewi Lewis book, and it's all about those without home who live in a busy underpass in tents and shelters, and they sit cheek by jowl only a block or two away from tech companies worth millions. It's difficult to make those stories without it just becoming poverty porn sometimes, and I do ask him about that. But Bob, has a way of talking with people, and people seem to like to tell him their stories.
Today on the Photo Walk.
In this country, and I think it's true in England as well, or Britain, if you're in jail, by nature, you are invisible. I can't tell you when I first started how many photographers told me this will never work. Nobody will ever sit in front of that computer looking at this image. The idea of criminal justice was, I want to go places that other people don't go, that are restricted. That's why people like me were foreign correspondents. And at this end of Division Street are 1,500 startup tech companies. And then within 2 blocks, we have the unhoused who have no money whatsoever. My goal when I go to any town, even towns I know, is to go get lost.
That's Robert Gumpert, my guest on the Photo Walk show today. Back for a second visit is Bob. Alongside him, I'll be sharing some of your letters, your stories and thoughts that you sent in about life and your adventures with a camera as we walk together. It's a show shaped by you as much as my wonderful guests, which is what makes this time together each week feel so personal. Well, I'll peek into the mailbag in a moment just to see what's coming up, but before that, I want to personally thank those who are Patreon members of our community, the extra milers, because your belief in this show and your desire to keep us walking together each week is the total why and how of this podcast. Every week, there is an extra show which you'll get through Patreon. It now features a second part of my conversation with my guest, as it does today, chats with those in the community, and the 5 days of reflections, my own take on making pictures and a life behind the lens. Thank you also to arthelper.ai for backing our show. I know a fair few photographers who'd love to sell their work, but stall at the first hurdle because they're unsure how to present it, what to write with those pictures, or how to keep up with the posting and the emails and that kind of stuff. That's when you might need a helper. And arthelper.ai can be that assistant. They'll step in with all of that stuff, building the posts and sorting out mock-ups, drafts, and marketing emails, which gives a proper starting point to those who haven't a clue how to do it. There's a film on the show page that takes you through the process. Now, you can explore it for 30 days at no cost with the code PHOTOWALK when you head to arthelper.ai. Right on the show, if you don't mind a few follow-ups from letters sent in last week, so this has a bit deja vu, stand by, because Gene Westberg is still with Rex on a path somewhere in South Utah, but he is wondering about the difference between street and travel photography. Fred Ash, also back, with a micro complaint. Oh no. And now Michael Brennan, you know Michael. He's just sent me something in the post that I know will be truly inspirational to some in our community who are looking to bring their work alive in print in 2026. And a few words also about The One, that big picture from 2025 that said everything about you and what's caught your imagination pictorially. So, come on, shall we walk? Checklist out. Coffee, check. Garibaldi's, check. Dog treats, need them today, check. Some spare film, maybe an extra SD card, check. Well, let's walk. Your letters and your messages really do shape this community we have here on this podcast. Your stories about walking, creativity and photography, obvs, give us space to pause as we head out along our paths together, wherever we are in the world. So grab a camera, come join us. Whatever camera you use, whether it's a smartphone or top-of-the-range Clickopotamus Prime with an f/0.2 Cheese-O-Matic infinity lens, you're more than welcome. Come on, pups. God, it's so muddy today. Look at this. Squelch, 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 squelch. The email address for the show is stories@photowalk.show. Stories@photowalk.show. Right, first letter. Actually, that's squelching. I could point toward Jean, who wrote in last week, and it's a follow-up to start with, a follow-up letter. Gene Westberg's letter was featured last week, and he asked the question, it was Gene, wasn't it? Do you really go out and record these? Are you actually in the wilds? Yes, Gene, look. I mean, I can't do this in the closet. Hold on. Some more squelching. Oh, not so squelchy, that one. Always a good one coming up, Gene. Stand by. But Gene, yes, some background. Gene's letter last week. We do follow-ups from time to time, and I feel I need to start the show with 2 follow-up letters this week. Gene's letter was about the heart surgery he'd had and finding Rex, the Alsatian lab. It was an Alsatian lab, wasn't it? And, well, his dog, Rex, has become pretty much his personal trainer on his year-long journey back to full strength. So keep a lookout if you walk in southern Utah, because that's where you'll find Gene and Rex. Here comes a squelching, Gene. Stand by. Here we go. This is a good one, Gene. Yeah, that's the backstory to this. And here's a follow-up letter from Gene. Pups, out of there. Out of there. Come on, this way. Neil, you are a hoot. Do you use that phrase in Britain land? Well, we did, Gene, in 1932, from the time when the news was read in a Pathé newsreel style, if anyone remembers Pathé. That kind of, Daphne and Roger were the first to test the new open-air swimming baths in Lower Puddlesham on Toast, and found the water bracing enough to remind Roger what trunks were invented for. What a hoot was had by all. That kind of, I hope nobody's listening. Somebody's over the fence. Just walking past the fishery here. Yeah, I think that's the period when the word hoot was used. Anyway, he says, your reading of my letter caused me to laugh out loud last week. Fortunately, Rex and I were walking alone at the time, and he showed no signs of being embarrassed by my behaviour. But to a couple of your questions, I feel a response, says Gene, is in order. No, I haven't become a robot or bionic character. Gene had talked about, the word assimilation was used. He said he'd become assimilated or something after his operation. And I thought in the letter that sounded like he'd become a robot. I choose, says Gene, to think of myself in terms instead of a classic automobile, circa 1953, that has some high mileage parts removed and replaced with upgraded hardware. The plumbing around my heart is certainly one example. The ball joint in my right hip is another. To carry the analogy a bit further, I'm a daily driver, not a showroom specimen. Mileage takes its toll on us all, but I'm blessed to live in an age where replacement parts are readily available, says Gene, and well-trained mechanics are specialised in their fields. Replacing malfunctioning parts is a well-honed craft now, and not the stuff of science fiction or 1970s television serials. When I told my wife I'd requested a street photography stroke distillery tour workshop in Scotland. Ah, yes, you mentioned that last week, if we could possibly make our tour a bit of both. She immediately said, yes, Gene, go. It wasn't so much that we'd consider the trip, or maybe we should have a chat about the expense. Her comment was, no, just go. I think she was hoping it was already organised and that I should be booking accommodation instead of asking her opinion. So, Neil, the ball is definitely in your court. I've been issued a yard pass with a date to be entered as soon as you provide all the details. Well, it's a lovely idea, Jean. Although, and I will mention Scotland a bit later on in the show, I think I should probably fill the spaces for the June Scottish retreat before I set a date for a distillery crawl. I think that's perhaps the right order. Having said that, book on to the retreat, he says with a glint in his eye, and I will bring you a bottle of the finest Glenfiddich. Finally, is there room for two behind your sofa of flattery? As I was touched by your kind comments concerning my reason for writing. This past Sunday, the topic of being thankful was discussed in church, and I felt I needed to act upon the lesson. I've been extremely blessed throughout my life, says Jean, and realised I often take for granted kindness offered by others. I tell you what, Jean, it being almost a new year, there'll be some folk thinking of gratitude projects, I would imagine. And I say that because I've read, and this is by no means, it's not pups, no means scientific. I've read more people saying that this year they are dropping their forthcoming 365s for a once-a-week gratitude project instead, handwritten letters and that kind of thing. So it's most certainly a theme at the moment, gratitude. And I have a question to finish off, says Jean. This is a good follow-up letter, Jean. What's the difference between street photography and travel photography? Is it location, composition, people versus no people? Must the image include a street or buildings? I would be interested in your view. When you said, what's the difference between street photography and travel photography, I thought this sounds like the perfect setup for a gag. So, yes, what is the difference between street and travel photography? Well, Jean, stand by. Street photography is what you do when you nip out for milk. Travel photography is what you call it when you nip out for milk in Marrakesh. Boom. Street photography, stepping outside your door. Travel photography, stepping outside your overdraft. I'm here till Wednesday, folks. I've got another one. Street photographers wait for the perfect moment to walk into the frame. Travel photographers wait for the perfect moment, and then a bus with a load of tourists parks right in front of it. All truisms, I feel, but to answer your question, I think the two are pretty much bed partners, aren't they, really? I mean, if you want to be purist about it, Jean, street work is an unscripted way of working, isn't it? Very candid way of working. Moments are happening in front of you, and you're reacting to it. It's very reactionary. Whilst travel, as I've learned over the last 3 years in particular, can be, well, it's more about the place, isn't it? That what's the word? That sense of place, which is undoubtedly driven by the kid in a candy shop thing, isn't it? Particularly if you go abroad, because travel photography doesn't necessarily have to be outside your shores. Some countries are so large you probably don't need to, or don't feel inclined to as much. But for me, places like India, well, it's kid in a candy shop territory. It really is. And that's about a sense of place. So, I suppose travel's also about unscripted moments, having said that. So, a pretty happy couple, I'd say. They should get a room, Jean. Do you want another street versus travel gag? No? Well, suit yourself. Come on, pups. Nobody likes my jokes. But I don't think a career in stage, in comedy, is waiting, pups. Very low sun today. Ooh, look at that. powering through the trees. Let's get a sketchbook picture. Hang on. Here comes my trusty X100V. Right. If I set to F8, might get a bit better starburst or sunburst. F8 shutter speed 1300th, 160 ISO, and there we go. A sketchbook picture. Pups, you've been very good actually. Would you like a bit of a treat? A treat? I can hear Captain Keith saying, has he earned it? Yes, he has, actually. Hold on. No, don't put your nose in the actual box. There we go. Another one? Perfect. My eldest would say, stop chamming. Right, oof. He just walked all over the notes. Thanks very much. Come on, pups. Actually, this is a week of follow-up letters, if you don't mind, to start with. Just one more. Fred Ash. Do you remember him from last week? Of course you do. Fred from Finland. Fred of the Finnish. I did say that I didn't think that sounded very Finnish at all, actually, and that's for good reason. Fred is actually Canadian. A Canadian architect. I said designer last week, I think, Fred, so apologies. I'm not sure if you, as an architect, what is the ranking between architects and designers? Oh, God, I know, pups, I could be causing could be opening up. I know, you're right. So I'm sorry if I offended. I shall flagellate myself with a damp copy of Scandic Architects Monthly, the hardback edition, when I return today. Neil says, Fred, I've noticed atop the letter from last week that you like using quirky terminology that delightfully catches one's ear and interest. Well, that's because, Fred, I like silliness, as you probably just gathered there. I do like an outbreak of silliness, although when the boys are teasing me at home, my humour doesn't seem to work quite as well. I think it needs new batteries. But I do like silliness. That's probably why I really like Monty Python. I was never really a Goons fan, but I do like Monty Python because I like daft words, daft skits. That's probably the old radio man in me, really, and what I grew up with. And Neil says, Fred. Yes, Fred, says Neil. When you are sketchbooking with your camera, for example, you often call out your exposure with 1/2/5. Well, yes, I do, don't I? This is totally wrong and unhelpful. But I would be bored, deflated and crushed if you said it any other way. So it's not so much a complaint. I thought that was a complaint, winging into the complaints floor. But you're absolutely right, Fred. Again, it is totally wrong and entirely unhelpful. It should be 1/125th, shouldn't it? But you know me and numbers. Right, to my, if you'd like to send in a letter, I'd love to hear from you. Send it to stories@photowalk.show. Stories@photowalk.show. We are taking a Christmas break. I was just about to go into my interview, but while I remember, we are taking a Christmas break. So next week's show is the last before Christmas. Then there is a week off, and we return, myself and Sir Barkalot, fully fit, I don't know, maybe a pound or two heavier, and ready to go again for 2026. Right, to my guest, a second conversation with the wonderful Robert Gumpert. I've introduced him already at the head of the show, so let's get straight down to business, as they say. Here is part one of my chat this week with Robert Gumpert, the photographer, the storyteller, the sound recordist. It's great to catch up again, Robert. I've been following your mail outs. I'm part of your mail out. And I've been thinking, must get Robert back on again. But if you don't mind, I do want to rewind a little bit for a moment, because when we originally talked, I can't believe it was 2021, Robert. How are these...
I have no idea.
How is this happening? Are we in some sort of time wormhole or something that seems to be speeding up? But we originally talked because I was really drawn to the way you use sound and pictures together, and since it's been a while since that chat, and we have new listeners all the time. Would you mind doing some joining the dots for me? Take a Picture, Tell a Story in the mid-90s was where you had some pretty amazing access to a county jail. You'd in essence, you'd show up with your camera and a sound. I'm simplifying it slightly, I know, but you'd turn up with your camera and a sound recorder, be shown to a room, and you'd have the space and time to interview and photograph sort of whoever you wanted, inmate-wise. Remind us of where that idea came from and how on earth you managed to get this extraordinary access.
So that's really two questions.
Yeah.
First of all, the Take a Picture, Tell a Story carried on till December of 2019.
Yeah.
In 95, I started a project on the criminal justice system in the U.S. But like most of my projects, they're all on a shoestring. So it was all done in San Francisco, with the idea that while this is a supposedly progressive city and certainly is more progressive than, say, the criminal justice system is certainly more progressive here than, say, Alabama, it still could stand in some ways for the rest of the country. So I did homicide, the police, public defender / courts, and the jail was last. And when I finished the jail, it became obvious to me people liked to talk to me, and I liked to talk to them. And so I went to the sheriff and I said, look, people like to talk to me. I'd like to do a new project. And that project is simply take a picture, tell a story. I take their picture, they tell me a story, they get copies of the photos, they get copies of the story. And that's it. And he said, where would you like to do that? The San Francisco jails at the time had 4 jails. He said, where would you like to do it? And I said, everywhere. And he said, how long? And I said, for as long as I want. And he said, call me tomorrow. I can't tell you right now. Call me tomorrow. So I called him the next day and he said, yeah, I think we can do that. The reason is that he liked the idea that people were going to be able to talk about whatever they wanted, and they were all going to get copies. And so that was the way it worked. And originally I was able to go in and walk around. And when people said they wanted to do it, I'd say fine, and we'd go into a little interview room and we'd do it. And sometimes it would take 15, 20 minutes, and sometimes it would take a couple hours. There wasn't any set time. I wasn't looking for any particular kind of people, except I did not want, in my head, I would keep a tally, because I didn't want everybody to be black or everybody to be white or everybody to be Latino or Asian. Mm-hmm. I never asked people about why they were there. And it was pretty simple, I'd start it up, I'd ask them their name, they'd sign a release, I'd ask them their name, and then I would just say, tell me a story.
Why didn't you ask them what they were in for?
I didn't really care. The people I was talking to were in this country are in jail. It's like being on a remand. In
a remand situation, isn't it? Yeah, that's true. Yes.
So they hadn't been convicted.
No.
To some extent, it was counter what I was trying to do. That was the obvious question everybody would ask. In this country, and I think it's true in England as well, or Britain, if you're in jail, by nature you are invisible, but you are also not cared about, at least in any kind of positive manner. So the whole point of this was to basically let people say, look, I'm a human being. I have the same concerns everybody else does, the same needs. I just live in a different social world. And that became very evident over the years that folks, I live in San Francisco. The people I interviewed lived in San Francisco, but I walk out my door and I'm not afraid of getting shot. I don't worry if, am I coming home tonight? But the folks I talked to, not because of what they did, but because of where they lived, their families, and they never quite knew what's going to happen. Am I going to step wrong? If I'm going to cross, am I going into the wrong territory? Are the cops going to stop me and shoot me because we all look alike in a rough sense? The folks I talked to in the jail occupied several different communities with different rules. I have a hard enough time navigating my one community. They navigate several different ones. There's the one that we all live in. There's the one that says you got to be careful when you leave the house. There's the one that's in jail, which is a different community. They all have different languages, different meanings to the same words. And I thought that was actually, I don't know if admirable is the right word, but impressive. As a white male in America, I don't need to do that. And frankly, I don't know that I could.
I'm intrigued. I didn't ask you before about this sheriff. We seem to live in a you scratch my back, I scratch your back kind of society. And I wonder what he felt he was getting out of it. I know that those inside were getting their stories. You were giving them the pictures. But what were those in charge getting out of it? Or did they feel they didn't need to?
Well, it wouldn't be a they; it would be the sheriff.
Right. Well, what was the sheriff receiving?
So here in the States, you have the sheriff, and then you have sheriff's deputies.
Right.
So the deputies are the day-to-day people in the jail, and sheriff by nature in this country they are by nature very, very conservative. They're often the people who believe the only legitimate form of government is the county sheriff. Every other piece of government is illegitimate. So the sheriff that let me in, he got elected in about 83, something like that. He was not a law enforcement person. He was a prisoner's rights lawyer. So he got elected, and the entire sheriff's association of the state of California pressured the state legislature to pass a law saying that you could never become sheriff if you weren't licensed as a law enforcement officer. And they wanted to throw him out, but they wouldn't grandfather it in. So they were stuck with him, and he kept. It's not a position anybody wants, so he kept getting reelected, and he was a sheriff here for 32 years. Wow. He was a very progressive guy. I mean, he thought that when he came in, there were consent decrees facing the department, or that would come down on the department about their hiring practices. And he didn't want to have to go to court, so he went and recruited. He raised all the wages. He gave them really good benefits, and then he went out and recruited in areas where people never would have thought about a career in law enforcement. And he went to like gay bars. We have the gay pride parade here. He would go out and recruit during the gay pride parade. He would go into the black community and recruit, and it was a very simple recruiting. I mean, I want you. I'm facing this issue. I can pay you a salary that begins in the high five figures, like $90,000. You'll get really good benefits, and that's going to be good for your family. So come work for me. And where he came from, he had a very solid idea of how he wanted the jail to run, and he was a history buff, so he wanted the jail documented. So I was a natural. I had come to him out of nowhere at a particular moment in time when he was closing down a jail he had worked against his entire career, and he had finally managed to get it closed. And here I came along and said, let me in. I can document your jail. And so he said, sure. And we got along, and I was true to my word. But the reason I was able to last, because the sheriff said, you let him in, you let him do what he wants to do.
Yeah.
They gave me keys.
Literally the keys.
They literally I didn't get to take them home, but you'd go in and you'd hand them your ID. Yeah. They would hand me a set of keys. A set of keys, right. And off I'd go. Wow, the only constraint was, if in that particular jail where there were blind spots, they said, look, if you go into these areas, you need to tell us first. Yeah. Not because we're going to prevent you, but because if you don't show up, at the end of shift, we know where to look for you.
Good heavens. You also, and the other thing we talked about, and not just the pictures and the interviewing, was the fact that you sound recorded people. And that's what fascinated me, because I love the medium of sound. You know that. So why the medium of sound? Why did that become part of this project?
Well, people like to talk to me. And I developed this idea of take a picture, tell a story. But what was I going to do with it? I wanted to do something with it. And I can't take notes fast enough. I'm just not that. I'm not that kind of guy. And so the idea came up to talk to people, record them, and then the original idea was I would put it up like on a sound slides. Do you remember there was a program that called Sound Slides where it's kind of like it's like a movie of stills.
Yeah. I call it a photo film.
Yeah, and it's done to a soundtrack. So I thought I would do that, and then it became really evident that if I interviewed a guy for 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and then I edited it down, but it was still like 10 minutes long. The photo has to click over every 5 seconds.
You wouldn't have had. You wouldn't have had enough.
I didn't have that kind of material.
No.
And so at one point I toyed with the idea of saying, okay, well, what I'll do is I'll listen to what they have to say, and then I'll go out and find material and photograph that fits with it. And then I realized that was like going to take more time than I had.
Well, there's long form, which you're famous for, and long form. I think that you'd have still been doing that today.
Well, probably.
The first story.
So then I hit upon this. I love radio. I mean, I really love radio. And I had, I'd come out of the 60s. I had this idea of Marshall McLuhan and hot and cold mediums, and that reading is the hot medium, radio is lukewarm or warm, and then visual is cold. TV is a cold-ass medium. Yeah. And it's because everything's presented to you. So you sit there like semi-comatose, and everything's delivered. But with radio, like, are you a cricket fan?
Yeah.
You listen to cricket on radio?
Funnily enough, you've just hit on something really important here. I don't watch cricket on television, but I love listening to it on the radio because it's the painting of the pictures in between. And my God, do you need to paint pictures in between that game because it's reasonably slow.
And the same is true of American baseball.
Right.
And it does depend on the commentator to some extent. But what it really is you, the listener, having pictures pop into your head from the audio. And so I decided, well, I can do that. These guys, I'll just put a picture up of them. And because it's a still and nobody will expect it to move, they'll listen and they'll very quickly forget about the image in front of them. I was essentially doing radio. Yeah. I can't tell you when I first started how many photographers told me this will never work. Nobody will ever sit in front of that computer looking at this image for more than 10, 15 seconds. But that's not the way it worked out. They would sit and what happened is exactly what I thought. They would sit and look, and then the photo would disappear and they just listen. And then I kind of helped myself out by doing chapters so that I tried never to put up more than a 4 to 8 minute piece. If there was more, which there almost always was, I edited it so that there would be chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, or whatever I chose to call it.
I'll never forget when I originally worked in radio, a producer saying to me one day that radio paints better pictures. It wasn't his phrase. That had been passed down by many people to him, but it's very true. I think that it's a passive medium, but equally, it's something that really grabs you. And often I've been told actually by those who've wanted to talk about this podcast. It's not an interview about me; it's about you. But I think this is important. That it'll never work, Neil, unless you make it into a YouTube film. And the way that this thing is put together, the walking elements, then the interviews, and I've always maintained that this is a long form sound experience because you fill in the gaps when you're listening. Yeah. And I
absolutely agree. I don't think that radio or audio is a passive medium. I think that it is. I think that, I had, at one point, I had a kind of whole hierarchy, right? Because that's what I tend to do. So, but radio, on the hot side, it was reading, which I don't do much of, unfortunately, but it was reading and radio. And then somewhere in there were still images, which I consider to be much hotter than TV or video or film. Yeah, I really liked it. And it would still be up if it wasn't for the President of the United States.
Well, I want to come to that in a second. I'll stick with the sound for a second because if you were to imagine the room that Robert is in now. So here's a little bit of sound play, if you like. Now, I get the benefit of seeing Robert because I'm interviewing him through Zoom. That's how I do these interviews. So I know what is behind him. But what do you think is behind him? What do you think the room is like that Robert is sitting in? So if I describe to you now that there's a picture behind his head that's kind of obscured, I think there's a bookshelf to one side. There's an exercise ball in the corner. That's a huge exercise ball. My God, you could do some damage with that. There's a large-scale printer. The wall is grey. I reckon right now people are beginning to fill those gaps in. And that's the powerful thing when you describe something within an audio medium. Now, I do want to come to this reason why this story, Take a Picture, Tell a Story, is no longer online. I tend to stay pretty clear of politics because I know just how it divides the audience that I have. However, there are times where you can't avoid it. I think this is one of those moments where I want to ask you why it is no longer here. You will have your own set of feelings and emotions and thoughts about power and the problems with power when it meets this particular amazing series that you worked on. I was really sad to find, and I mean that genuinely, that I could not find this online anymore. Why?
Well, in a nutshell, I did not want the material used by the current administration of this country as resources for identifying people who might be the type that they would like to arrest or deport or just harass. And so I took it down. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. I don't actually ask people about their politics. I was happy if they brought it up. And certainly in the jails, when I interviewed white nationalists, they brought it up all the time. But in this particular case, I just felt like it's funny. It wasn't so much what they said, because it wasn't like people said, oh, I'm undocumented. And because these guys were in jail, one of the excuses this government uses is, oh, you commit crimes. Well, they were in jail, rightly or wrongly. They were in jail, in part because they can't afford to get out, but they were all waiting on trial. And so they had kind of already been condemned. So this isn't political about the folks I photographed. It's political about the fears I had of the possibility of this administration's use of the material. And I'm sure there are going to be a number of people who will say, oh, Bob, you're just a paranoid. But, it's not my life they would be screwing with. It's these folks who gave me the time of day.
I did everything she told me not to do. And that's one of the reasons why I ended up in prison, because I didn't listen. I'm not used to being in a 12-man tank. I prefer to have just one cellmate, and if you get along with them, time will go that much faster.
I'm definitely in and out of jail, nonstop. I can't do this anymore. I just want my family back. I want my daughter. I'm over this. I'm getting too old, and this just isn't cute anymore.
And my thanks to Robert Gumpert, who returns for part 2 shortly on the show. Also, there will be an additional part on the Extra Mile today when we have 3 more stops with Robert. One of the truly special and privileged parts of having presented this show over the last 5 years? I think it is. Numbers, Neil, you said numbers weren't your strong point. One of the privileged parts of doing it anyway is that now and then I receive through the post the most incredible gifts. Thank you, H, for the calendar. The only one received so far this year, so it is in pride of place. Especially because you took a picture of my favouriteest helicopter in the whole wide world at an air show, the Lynx. Now that's, come on pups, this way. That's September's picture, September 2026, is just perfect. Well, they're all perfect, this month in particular. But I know I have to wait till then. I can't just leave it on September 2026. There's also been some books this year that, yes, you've made, which now sit in a special designated friends zone on the bookshelf. So thank you for those as well, and I shall mention some of those by name over the coming weeks. And, I did receive the teeny tiny Land Rover. Thank you, Tony, with an I, Tony Lake. When I said I was hoping for a Land Rover for my travels, I should have been a bit more specific about the scale. But I did laugh when I got that a month or so back at 1/64th scale. So not necessarily something I shall be driving in, but that's on the bookshelf too. And then Michael Brennan sent me 3 more of his mail-outs. Now, these are absolutely beautiful works of art. And if you're thinking, what can I do in 2026 to really get the creative spark back or supercharge it even more, then printed material can be one of those ways, I say. Now, there's a temptation to think that printed things have to be grand zines or grand books. And it's wonderful, of course, when they are, yes. But they can also be subtler, smaller pieces, such as Michael's A5 mailers. And on the front of each there is a quote. So let me describe what these mailers look like. There's a quote on the front such as Platon's creativity is like water. It fits into different vessels, and that's really important because creativity will eventually go down the mountain. You can't stop it. And then within the mailer, as you open it up, I'll take a picture actually and put these on the show page so you can see them. As you open it up, there's a print on the left-hand page. It's a single fold, and the print is held in by those sticky picture mounts, which they are definitely a thing of my youth, and probably a lot of our youths. I really remember sticking pictures into our family photo books with those picture mounts because I was all fingers and thumbs. Honestly, I was. I'd always leave some on the carpet, and they'd disagree with our very ancient Hoover. I'd get in trouble with Mum. Have you left picture mounts on the floor again? No, it wasn't me. But the tactile nature of having a real print Michael has made is absolutely perfect. I love it. So then opposite the picture this is, you get a written story, a reflection actually, in many ways, a reflection. And that plays into the subject, usually I think of the quote I'm right in saying, though it doesn't have to. And then on the back of the mailer, some more thoughts in shorter paragraphs, such as a book Michael is listening to, or something he's found or uncovered, somebody he admires, that sort of thing. And then at the bottom is always a paragraph titled Pass It On, where he encourages you to pass the mailer on or perhaps pop it on your fridge. But always, before you do anything, he says, check behind the photo. And that's the magical bit. I love things like this. And I'm going to share something with you because it does remind me, or reminded me as I read these pass it on messages, that I've done a similar kind of thing in my studio. Behind where I sit when I do my studio bits, there is a false wooden plank wall. Now, the wooden plank wall is based on a coffee shop that I used to go to a lot. I loved the way that they just built a new wall of planks, and it was all higgledy-piggledy, and I like that very much. But behind that false wall, or that wooden plank wall, I popped some photo envelopes with pictures of our little family growing up in the house. Because one day, a new family will own our 1920s, 1930s house. And I just know they'll probably want to do their own decor, and my wall of planks may not well be their favourite kind of false wall, so they'll rip it all down to smooth it over, and then they'll find this message that's to them. And I can't remember exactly what it says, but it's something along the lines of, this house was not just our home, it was our sanctuary. Please look after it as much as it has looked after us. It's something along those lines. I know, pups. I thought that was quite nice as well. Hang on a second. Michael, bear with me. I think Pups wants another one of these. Sit down. Good boy. That's manners. Give me a paw. Good boy. Look at that. Amazing. You are just like Lassie. In no way, shape or form. Where is he, Lassie? Is he at the bottom of the mine shaft? 2 barks. There we go. Another one. Another couple. Don't ruin your appetite. Recording day. You know what recording day is, don't you? Is it bacon butty day, Neil? It most certainly is. Anyway, Michael, you always say look behind the pictures, and I have for all 3 of the latest ones. Some of them are quotes and considered thoughts from other people, such as writers, and there is one from you, which, if you don't mind, I'd like to use today as the PS. So there we go. That's what Michael has been doing, and I feel very lucky to receive these in the post all the way from your part of America land. There's a spring in me step when I receive envelopes. There really is. They're majestic, these mailers you've made. I mean that as well. They are majestic thought and creative capsules. Very inspiring indeed. And I'm hoping you won't mind, but I'd like to read the piece you wrote in September's issue, which is number 7 of 12, which is called The Scent. And I'm going to read what was under the picture opposite what you wrote, as I say later on as the PS. I'm reading this, well, in fact, my studio self is going to read it because it just sounds better that way. And so often we talk about other senses, not just sight, being so very precious and often something that leads our eyes to photographs. For instance, I think I often hear the picture before I see it. Certainly when I'm photographing events, but your writing, Michael, about the olfactory sense, the sense of smell, is just beautiful. You, sir, are a writer. I slid my kayak onto the river that morning into a silence so thick the water felt as if it were holding its breath. I drifted downstream until I came to a newly built timbered bridge. That's when it found me. The scent of wet wood with freshly cut copper woven in. I slipped under the arch of the bridge and took in the dense air. The scent opened something within me. A simple question. What was the first scent I loved and could remember? My memory answered not with one scent, but a whole wave of them, each vivid and alive. My grandmother's tiny home, warm fabric, a haze of aged flowers, safety. Machined grease on the stretched chain of my Schwinn Stingray, freedom. A padded dirt path to the pond behind my childhood home, belonging. The wet creek musk in my dog Spooky's fur, trust. Fresh laundered clothes draping upon my little frame, care. And the faint wisp of my mother's hair, who passed when I was 10, love. The whole swirl swept in, and I wept. The simple experience reordered the way I wanted to understand and feel the world around me. The river isn't just water. It's a body with an aura, aquamarine, leaf rot, and old cedar sap. The creek isn't just a tributary. It speaks, damp musk, broken silt. And that lake, when sun-drenched, it releases mineral green laced with algae and cracked juniper. Since that moment, below the bridge, the waters I've studied for the past 4 years moved from seeing to sensing, observing to embodying, studying to knowing. Sense transcends and awakens an experience unlike any other sense. It bypasses the gatekeepers to a deeper place within us, and that place holds memories tight. What was the first scent you loved, really loved? And why do you think it stayed? An open question. Perhaps you have an answer for Michael, who is, by the way, Michael J. Brennan. And if you're thinking, not Michael J. Brennan, the English-American photographer who's known for his photographic portraits of leaders, athletes, celebrities and cultural figures, no, not that Michael J., but it is the Michael J., just a different the Michael J. Just as important, well, certainly to me. But actually, come on, pups, this way. Actually, I did reach out to Michael to ask if he wouldn't mind me reading his mailer, and he said no probs, adding the following. Honestly, he says, I've learned more in these 9 months of sending an actual photo with words and sent through the post than I did in years of sharing online. Social media, has its place. But there's something about a stamped envelope arriving in someone's real-life hands. In a world speeding ever faster, the analogue offers a kind of friction that I find sacred. A slowing down, a presence, a trace of goodness. And really, why not put good into the world? Absolutely right. I share your thoughts on that one. Certainly. I want to stand you, Michael, on a TEDx stage so you can look into the eyes of 1,000 people in a packed auditorium, staring back at you, all saying, yes, Michael, yes, yes. But these mailers are simply beautiful, as I've said, and I feel very lucky to be on your list of recipients. But I'm hoping your story, and your writing there, come on, pups, this way, will ensure others to remember how amazingly special printed material of any size, shape and form can be. So once again, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, pups, do you want to say thank you? One of those moments he won't bark. I'd love to hear from you about your projects, what you've been up to of late. If you have any special ideas, like the mailer we were just talking about, then send your thoughts, your letters, your pictures to stories@photowalk.show. Stories@photowalk.show. A few bits of housekeeping, then we're off and running into Robert Gumpert's second part. First up, thank you, and thank you once more. Lots of thank yous today for the assignment pictures you've sent in this year, and actually the last few years since we've been running it. Your pictures have been nothing short of amazing. The narratives too, and that's why I'm so, and I genuinely mean this, so very proud to have them on the website, because I think if you go to the assignment tab, you have a whole plethora of inspiration. Now, I'm giving the feature a short break until the end of March because we're on our travels with this show quite a lot into the new year, and you'll be joining us too. No, you won't be, Paps. No, sorry about that. But we have Paris with Valerie, then Germany, then Bangladesh, then India. And there'll be a few pre-prepped shows to cover the latter two in particular. I'll be recording specials in every location, which I'll be editing, I suppose, on the road at times. So we do hit the ground running in 2026 with some audio specials in waiting, and perhaps a little bit closer to where you are in the world if you want to walk along with us. Actually, it's Austria, not Germany. Apologies. I land in Germany and then drive to Austria. But I did think, so that I'm not ridiculously behind, I'd rest the assignment feature for a few months so I can make sure I'm concentrating still on your lovely letters that you send in to the show. So I'm hoping to take a wodge of them up to the top of a mountain in Austria, as it goes, for a letters and thoughts special. Great place to clear your head, isn't it? Top of a mountain. So the assignments return in April. It's a spring feature. Now, to the one, the photograph you sent in to represent your photographic year, the big picture from the year. Again, you have been nothing short of amazing. Twice over now for these. So thank you so much for them. But you've they're outstanding. They truly are. But you've handed me a problem. I said to you that I'd be inviting 10 of you from the gallery called The One on the website to appear on the first show of New Year to talk about your picture and the why behind it. And I still intend to do that. But how to choose? I'm going to level with you now, as I like to say. I am proper confumulated and twisty-turned in the jumble world of incredulopium photographico, as Stanley Unwin would have said. Those who remember Stanley Unwin, of course. So, I'm going to be choosing 10. Or rather, I'm going to lean on a few friends to help choose what I'm going to call my initial 10. And then over the next year, I think I will come back to a good few more. And this feature is going to stay on the website, because I think if you have a moment to visit with a mug of Chateau Neuf de Fallover or champagne flute of Nespresso, you will be truly inspired by what you find there. You really will. It's cut-off day today. It's the 12th. So get your pictures in, and I'll be uploading like a mad thing over the weekend. And we will be doing the same thing next year. I think it's been so successful this year. Your pictures and your stories, so wonderful that I want to do it next year as well. So there we go, that's done. And now, on to matters Scotland for just a mo. Bookings are open for Scotland 26, as you know, which we've moved to slightly warmer climes of the first week of June this year. There is a link on the website for Scotland 26, and there are a few extra features in 26 just to keep things fresh. The biggie is that we're going to be heading to an incredible studio on the second and third day to produce photogravure prints. And because it's 2 days, we also have time in Inverness to do a bit of urban photography atop the wonderful Highlands photography we do out in the wilds, the glens and the lochs as well. So that could be, well, when I talk of urban, it doesn't have to be people, it can be shapes, it can be texture, all sorts of micro challenges we're going to have. Alongside printing together or producing this print of your life. That is a real, photogravure this is a real physical process where you're making plates, inking, pressing. And I have to say, this is the kind of place that you might take your biggest digital picture to, maybe your one from 2025, to make what I think is going to be, and I truly mean this, a legacy print moment, because the way you make this print, the whole process of it is just gorgeous. And I've seen the work that Lynn Fraser has made from her travels abroad, the portraits in particular. There's nothing else quite like this process, I think. I mean that. I do. Oh, we'll be making a podcast together, of course, together, as always, together. Can I say together again? So bookings are open now. We have just 3 places left. Food, lodgings and travel through the Highlands all included. Bring your walking boots, because we're going to, weather permitting, make a long ascent to a modest mountain top overlooking beautiful Loch Marie. And here's some choice moments to share the camaraderie over the last few years of what being on this retreat actually sounds like.
And just closing our eyes and allow your body to settle into this place. Be aware of your breath.
Now, the Pirates' Graveyard isn't really a burial place for pirates, so we have to get that straight right from the start. It's actually called St Regulus's Graveyard. But
they are graves.
Yes, but almost all of the gravestones in this graveyard have a skull and crossbones.
I've found the lesser spotted Keith standing in the mud. What are you photographing anyway?
The reflections down there, like my water reflections. Yeah. So you can see there, getting the trees back there, and then actually just turning this way and looking back, a bit of a micro scene going up the side of the rocks and up the side there.
How's the film challenge coming on? Because you've got your film camera. How many shots have you made?
Well, I took my glasses off, so I'm about 16 maybe.
Oh, you're 16 in? Oh,
yeah.
Good effort, I'd say. 16, about now. Perfect.
I think I'm going to have some in-focused photos, so...
Hopefully. Michael has been, I think he will take the award for most prolific photographer in the Scottish retreat this year, because usually after about half an hour you hear Michael approaching from behind you saying, I've shot 300 already.
Well,
I'm running out of batteries.
My philosophy is take 150 shots and maybe 10 or 15 will be keepers.
You see vistas, but this one takes the biscuit. So yeah, hopefully what we're seeing comes out as nice in the images.
Sure it will. I'm sure
Definitely.
It will. Yeah.
So you've got the scales greys, and the head. Got the heather changing colour, the ferns going brown there. Just wonderful colours.
Because I think there's something for me elemental about being able to stand on rocks that are hundreds, millions, even years old. You get them particularly in Scotland. There's amazing variety.
The right aperture to get a correctly exposed image. So it'll take me another 3 hours to set up, I'm afraid.
It's a glacial experience, this camera. But I'm going to use the words, it's quite a spiritual view.
It is. There's not many places you see anything like this, that's for certain.
Did you have a moment?
Not really. No. Just pushed on. There were voices in my head, what I know Denise would be saying to me. You're crazy doing this.
Probably.
She would have done.
Would Denise have gone with you? Would she? No,
that'd have been too much.
I'll see you down in the car.
Ben Macdui, Bain Macdui, the mountain of the son of Duff, high king of thunder, old grey man, chief of the range, head of the clan.
You and I would pop up with our Fujis, running up that hill. Cue the song.
They're going to say the song there.
Right, should we run down the hill?
Yeah.
Kate Bush didn't do that song. Oh, I've got a damp bum. Oh, nobody told me the seat was wet. Oh, could have told me. Honestly, Keith. I blame Keith. I'm going to get a t-shirt. I blame Keith. I'm telling you, it's going to sell. There's money in that t-shirt. So then, if you'd like to come along to Scotland 26, I'd love to spend time with you in the Highlands. Trekking, printing, photographing, recording, forest bathing, gentle journaling and eating. There's always the eating. Have I mentioned the hearty food? I don't think you did, Neil. Oh, there's hearty food. Right, part 2 of my chat with Robert Gumpert, after which I will play the play-out song, which today is called Until We're Gone. It has this wonderfully thought-provoking feel to it. Very ethereal, actually. It's incredibly evocative as a song. Before that, though, Robert Gumpert, part 2. I've recently made my first proper sea voyage, and it was from New York to Southampton. So when I saw the project From the Water's Edge, it certainly piqued my interest. What's your fascination in those that set to sea and the MM&P hiring hall?
Well, I wanted to be a diver from the age of 8.
Oh.
So that's now 70 years ago. And I became a diver, and I became an instructor. But as a boss I had who ran a dive store that I worked at told me, there is no employment for diver. It's not a job. You have to do something else. Anybody can learn to dive. So you need to have something else. But I didn't want anything else. I didn't want to be a welder. I certainly didn't have the brains to be an engineer. I just wanted to be a diver. I wanted to be in the ocean, under the water. That's what I want.
And this was before photography?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But then I also didn't want to spear fish. I didn't like to eat fish. So what are you going to do? Well, I can take pictures. So I started taking pictures underwater.
How did that, though, how's this become this wonderful project about those who go to sea?
I wanted to return to the ocean. I was having a lot of trouble. I mean, the idea of At the Water's Edge had occurred to me, I guess, near the end of shooting Division Street. But I couldn't figure out, talk about a nebulous idea. What does that include? At the Water's Edge? Well, like many photographers, I had no idea. I didn't really care. It just sounded like a good project to me and had enough walls around it that I could try to fixate on something.
So you were working off a title, really?
I always work off a title.
So does the title come first, and then we'll worry about the pictures?
Quite often, yeah. The problem with being the kind of photographer I am is I'm a photographer. There's just no two ways about it. I always carry a camera, and I take pictures of anything, anything and everything. And just on the basis of, gee, that looks interesting. But what I learned early on is that if you're going to do like projects or stories, you have to find some way of boxing yourself in so that you don't get distracted. And so at some point I had to figure out what it was I wanted to shoot. And I tried shooting the coast, and I tried shooting waves, and I tried shooting, and I had a whole bunch of things I was going to try, like fishermen, surfers, amusement parks on the water.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, I told you it's a broad spectrum, right? At water's edge. And don't forget, the ocean isn't just the only water. There's rivers and lakes. And what happens, and it happens to, as far as I know, it happens to all photographers, is that you get lost. You get lost in the sheer possibilities of your mind running amok. So at one point, a friend of mine said, I know somebody in the sailors union. And I said, great, I'd love to talk to sailors.
So you've got this opportunity to photograph merchant sailors. In essence, to go and interview them as well as make their pictures. And you've honed your subject, you've nailed a purpose for the piece. But what's the hiring hall, Bob? What's the focus of By the Water's Edge? What is a hiring hall? I know it's a union-led thing, but I'm not sure what it is.
So the hiring hall is a place where workers in a union, and it's where the workers come and get jobs. So on Monday, you come into the hall, the mariners come into the hall, and the jobs are assigned by seniority and who arrived first. And people come in and go, you want to talk to me and have a picture taken?
A lot of them talk about the weather and the size.
Not all.
And the size, not all, obviously, yeah, but the size of the waves. There was one guy here, I was reading one of the stories. I love the story about how mariners can see bad weather coming. The seafaring version of cows lying down in a field. And it seems to be a system called the marching elephant.
Yes. They look out and they see like a fog bank or whatever.
I think it's a red sky as well. It normally
could be.
Yeah, it's there.
But nowadays, it's all computerized.
Yeah.
The companies actually hire another company to map out the routes based on weather, currents, and destination.
Did you feel the urge to try and join a voyage?
I would love to. That, I eventually, if I can find a way on, I will.
Because I know you can. I know there are companies that organise, I'm not sure about American carriers, but I know that there are people who actually travel the world on freighters. Yes.
There's apparently more beds on a container ship than there are crew.
Right.
But, to get on a ship, there are all kinds of security stuff. I've gotten the security clearance now. Then I have to decide, is my wife going to put up with me going on a 28-day cruise, right? Or a 3-month cruise.
I was going to say, and the rest from some of the pieces I read. Division Street is such an interesting part of your photographic history, Bob. It's by name and place it is division, or a very divisive place, mainly because of the people who inhabit this modest part of San Francisco. Your book, Division Street, takes a very stark look at the divide between the haves and have-nots, and I wonder why you made this project, or looked at making this project.
In 2015, walking around San Francisco, you just couldn't avoid the unhoused. It was shocking. It was just shocking how many people were living on the street and in those conditions. And so I decided I would try to do a project on the unhoused. The name comes because it was the time when the Super Bowl was coming to San Francisco. And what the city had done was San Francisco has the Embarcadero, which is on the bay. And it had a lot of homeless on it. So the city sent the cops out and they said, you can't stay here, but if you go over to Division Street, you can live unhassled, which was a lie, but it got them out of sight because Division Street is underneath a freeway and tourists, there's nothing there for tourists to stop on, even though they might drive on it. And so they came over, and you'd walk down to Division Street, and there would be, because the world's press was in town, they would all be down there day after day covering the unhoused. It became so bad that, and coming back to the audio business, it became so bad that I photographed a person that lived in a tent and had a sleeping bag. And I was with a radio person. And the radio person did an interview, and I did a few photos. And then the radio person was done, and an unhoused person said, well, aren't you going to get any actuality? Don't you want me to zip the zipper up and down so you can record that? They knew from all the interviews they'd done. I mean, I'm talking about weeks on end. There would be as many journalists as unhoused. So if there were 50 people on the street, there were 50 journalists. And everybody got interviewed multiple times. And I kept looking at the stories. And I was there with a friend of mine, a person I met who worked with the unhoused. And I looked at her one day and I said, doesn't anybody get that we're on Division Street? And at this end of Division Street are 1,500 startup tech companies. And then within 2 blocks, we have the unhoused who have no money whatsoever. Doesn't anybody make that connection? And nobody ever did.
So that was what Division Street, your project, was designed to do.
And that's where the title came from.
Documentary photography often walks this fine line, doesn't it, between bearing witness and telling a story like that and exploitation. How do you navigate that line? Because obviously you want to tell a story, but the dignity of those that are within the story is something that I know you, Bob, would feel very precious about.
I don't know the answer to this. We all have our lines, and those lines are often determined by who we are, what our beliefs are, but also what our clients want. To take the extreme, if you take a picture like Bruce Gilden does, you're going to get more sales than if you take a picture like I take, because it's going to get more eyeballs.
How do you feel about that?
I can't do it, all right? I can't do it. People do what they got to do and live with the consequences of that. Mm. I know that a while back, Nakwe somehow got an assignment to photograph a day in the life of a heroin addict. And Nakwe is an amazing photographer. Mm. And he came to San Francisco, where we have a lot of needle-based addicts of one sort or another, not necessarily heroin. And he took a bunch of photos, and they are powerful and absolutely what you would expect. There's nothing day in the life of a heroin addict about it. It is a moment in the life of a heroin addict when they've just shot up. And it is exactly what you would expect as a viewer. It's exactly what you would expect as an editor. And that's what they ran. And I thought that it was a cheap shot. With photographers, you always have to remember that we don't have control of the use. Even now, I have control of how my photos are used, in the sense that I have a website and that's where they're put. But if I send them to an editor, if I send 25 pictures to an editor and say, you need to pick 10 that tell the whole story, chances are there's going to be 5 that don't tell any story. They only guarantee there are going to be eyeballs on the page, whether that page is an electronic page or a print page. So I thought that Nakwe did a disservice to the folks, but on the other hand, he may not have. It may be that his editors did a disservice to him and the people on the street.
But how does that differ to the work that you produce from that same area that Nakwe visited?
I didn't do drugs.
Right. You stayed away from that subject.
Yeah, because it was what everybody. I didn't stay totally away. There are maybe 2 or 3 photos out of 100 that deal with drugs, and the reason is simple. The reason is that unhoused in everybody's mind is the same kind of thing as within the jail. I didn't ask them what they did to get in jail, because that's what everybody wanted to ask. And as soon as they heard whatever it was, they were going to turn off. It's also why the stuff in the jail is in black and white, because everybody's in orange. So if I shot it in color, then the first thing people would see was orange, prisoner, they did this, so I didn't want that. And in terms of the homeless, the unhoused, it's the same thing. They're unhoused. They're drug addicts. They're they're mental cases. They're breaking the law, and that would be the end of the communication between them, me, and the viewer.
Gotcha.
And that's why Division Street is in two sections. There's a section that is like, here we are on the street, walking around San Francisco. This is what San Francisco is.
Yeah.
It's got some military stuff. It's got the Blue Angels flybys. It's a pretty town. And then we have all these homeless, and people walk by and they don't care. And that's also why there are overheard conversations included in the book. And then the second part of the book are these formalized portraits, both on the street and in a service center, of people answering the question, what is home to you? What does home mean to you?
And what did home mean to those that were homeless?
As I suspected, home in a general sense means the same to folks on the street as it does to everybody else.
Yeah.
A safe place, a place where you can go and be with your family, stability, security, mental health, but how that's provided is sometimes different. I mean, in some places, the tent is home. As long as they're left alone. Home is where you can be left alone. People won't bother you, won't step into your space.
I went to Paris earlier this year, and hopefully I will be going back in January. I saw your work from this year, Paris and London. What were you looking for in Paris? Because there's some pictures that show a definite grit to Paris. Have you ever heard of Paris syndrome, by the way? I've only just heard of it myself. So Paris syndrome is something that, it's a real thing. You can look it up. It's something that tourists can feel when they go to this city, expecting the city of love and romance and beautiful cuisine and charming waiters. And when it's not quite like that, they feel a bit discombobulated. And your pictures show a bit of a mixture of that. They show a bit of a mixture of what I might call the gritty Paris, and here and there the Paris that I'd like to believe is the postcard Paris.
Well, don't all cities have that?
I suppose so, in a way, yes.
Isn't that true of all cities?
But
London's like that.
Yeah, London. Yeah,
I love London, but I mean, London has some real grit to it.
Well, I found that when I went to Los Angeles recently. I thought I thought it was all going to be palm trees, and but it's not.
No. I mean, I think that I really enjoyed those two things. That last trip last year to Paris and London, I was really quite taken aback. I had more fun shooting there this trip than I've had in years. And I just, it was just walking around. I mean, it was just basically what I've seen, what I saw. What's not included in there are all the iPhone photos of quirky little things that I saw. Or ads, or different kinds of, remember I told you, I just cannot stop taking pictures. So, there's pictures of typography that I took, flowers, designs, graffiti.
So the shooting brain of a very established photojournalist, as you have been along all these years, is you're saying there's a skitter-scatter approach to it, and it's not necessarily planned.
No, it's not. My idea when I travel, again, I'm a person of some privilege. I had enough money to get on a plane. I have a phone. I have a couple of credit cards. But my goal when I go to any town, even towns I know, is to go get lost. I won't carry a map. I get aggravated if somebody says, "Oh, well, just look on your phone. There's a map there." I get aggravated. I just kind of walk along, and then I take a look, and I go, "Oh, look at that. Look at that alley. I should go down that alley, see what's down there." But in Paris, I take graffiti. I do a lot of kind of details on graffiti.
I do love that idea of just wandering, ambling with a camera. I think we sat on the same seat, by the way, at Gare du Nord, waiting for our Eurostar to London. I'll tell you why. I recognise the wall that's behind the couple and those little flat benches. I reckon that's midway along, somewhere. That's midway along. and you took a picture of a couple kissing. I made a picture of a couple looking in opposite directions as they ate their morning breakfast out of a polystyrene box. Your picture was so much more romantic than my one. But I thought that was fascinating that you and I think we found the same seat to sit on to make a picture from.
I mean, that's one of the beauties about all this.
When it's been a while since I've asked you this question, so I'm fully expecting it to change. There's a question that I have at the end of all our chats, and it's simply why? Why do you do this?
It's the same reason as before. It's a way of staying sane. If I don't take pictures, I am not a nice person.
What a wonderful song to go with my conversation with Robert today, a song called Until We're Gone. The link for the song will be on the show page today. And that's it, really, for this week. One more show to go till Crimbles. If you can't wait until next Friday and want to walk a little further together, then that's what the Extra Mile edition is all about. 3 more stops today with Robert Gumpert and, of course, Friday's reflection piece.
On this week's Extra Mile.
You know, in journalism, in foreign correspondence, there's parachutists and then there's the locals. So the parachutists are the people who come in and do the quick hits. And they get it right or they don't get it right, or they don't get either. They don't get it right, nor do they get it wrong. They just get something, and that's used. The beauty of long form is that you get some understanding of the nuances and the contradictions, the different avenues that everything leads to or leads away from, avenues that you just won't see.
So if you'd like to support the show and hear a little more from the photo walk each week, head to the website, click Extra Mile or the orange support the show button, and you'll be a part of our community there, because that helps us keep walking week after week. And you get the 5 reflections during the week as well, not just Mondays. A couple of notes before the PS. If you are already an Extra Miler or you're thinking of joining us, thank you. This little corner of the walking and photographic world grows because you're there. So thank you for those already members, and welcome to those just joining over the Christmas and New Year period. Now, next week's show guest is Phil Sharp, the most incredible portrait photographer who does these, well, at times, day-long photo shoots with his clients. Well, much longer photo shoots anyway. He's an incredible photographer who's shot celebs alongside those whose names you may not be so familiar with, but always with a very deep understanding, I think, because of the way that he shoots. There's a film about him, actually, with Sean Tucker. I'll note to self, pop that on the show page, or maybe I'll pop that on the show page next week. That might make more sense. Now, as I said earlier, next week is the last show of the year because I'm taking a week off for the holidays, returning on Friday, Jan 2nd, with that special show, which we'll probably just call The One. A mention for those who steady the ship for us. My thanks to Neil Ford, who looks after IT, Andrea Gilpin, who keeps a watchful eye over Instagram, as does Kelly Mitchell for Facebook. Kelvin Brown, thank you, my friend, who is at the helm of the Flickr group, and to our Mr. Brennan, actually, who compiles the music of the show onto a Spotify playlist, so he does. And that's who I turn to for the PS this week. Remember I said within Michael's magnificent mail, as he says, alliterating all the way to the coffee shop where I'm headed for a bacon butty, did you say the magic word? Remember that I said if you look behind the picture within his mailer, as you open it up, there's a secret, hidden message, which I think actually is perfect for as a PS for this week. And I like it because it's Michael's actual quote as well. He said this: "Nature, at its lightest, is observed. At its deepest, it's carried in the body, sensed, remembered, and alive."
What's there to hold in the light of this moon? My mind keeps searching, but my heart decides. Thoughts can be cruel, they're not mine to hold. The space unravels when you let go.
The Photo Walk is a Loading Zone production.